Seen from outside of Turkey, the mass turnout that accompanied the funeral of a 15-year-old who fell into a coma during last June's Gezi Park protests is yet another nail in the coffin of Recep Tayyip Erdogan's hold on power. The response by riot police following a now familiar pattern, at least 2 deaths in ensuing clashes, yet despite a widening graft probe that's targeted his own son as well as several ministers, despite a power play among Islamists that's prompted a purge of police and the judiciary, international outcry over the internet's censorship and rising inflation, Erdogan is not going away. He's made March 30th local elections a referendum on his decade in office. All polls suggest the Islamist-rooted AKP will keep its wide majority. But how much change is really afoot in this emerging giant that straddles Europe and Asia, a NATO member that was hailed as a model when the Arab Spring began, but that now finds itself at loggerheads, even with the likes of Saudi Arabia and Egypt? What's next for Turkey? And what's next move of its prime minister? Today, in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the turmoil in Turkey. And with us to talk about it from Istanbul, Sinan ULGEN, chair of the Center for Economics and Foreign Policy Study. Thank you for being with us. We welcome back from Ankara, Galip, political researcher with the public policy think tank SETA. Joining us here in the studio, he's a physicist, but also an activist, Yetkin YILMAZ of the Taksim Collective in Paris. Thank you for being with us. Emre DEMIR, editor-in-chief of the French edition of Zaman. And we welcome as well political scientist Dilek YANKAYA. She's the author of The New Bourgeoisie and the Turkish Model. Thank you for being with us. The France 24 debate, where you can always join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter. Our hashtag F24Debate. Let's begin with what happened 24 hours ago. And I guess I'll start with you, Yetkin, and ask you, when you saw the turnout yesterday, and you think back of what's happened in the 269 days since, how similar or how different is it from what happened back in June?
Well, things are evolving constantly. This is not only about the beginning. Is not only about last summer, but this has been a growing political tension in Turkey for a long while, and we see this evolution. We see certain moments of this evolution of events, but this has been a long process of tension, and it's mostly about injustice, because the party that is called that has the name Justice in it has done nothing but abolishing justice. And whenever there's a kid dying from police violence, whenever there are people dying of state terror, there has been never the justice achieved, and this has been increasing the tensions and the anger of the people, and it has brought us to this day. And Berkin Elvan has been a symbol of what has been going on for many years for many people. So we have a lot of victims of the current government.
Let me ask you, Galip DALAY, were you surprised by how big the turnout was on Wednesday?
I don't know whether I was surprised, because I did expect a big turnout, but I wasn't expecting it to reach the extent that it has reached. So in this case, I might be slightly surprised, but not totally surprised.
And what does that say going forth for Prime Minister Erdogan? How weakened is he now?
Well, I don't know what measure that we are going to take in order to make a judgment how weakened he is. if you are going to take, like, his performance in the public opinions, if you are going to take his performance in opinion polls, we don't see like a big drop of support for him and his party. So from this perspective, that he is not very much weakened. He has lost some votes. He has lost couple percentage of the votes, but we haven't seen like any big drop so far.
Emre, DEMIR, how do you explain that? It's true. On the one hand, we saw surprisingly huge numbers on Wednesday. On the other hand, yes, the prime minister's gone a little bit down in the opinion polls, but he's still coasting to victory.
Well, I think that the funeral yesterday was a symbol. It was a message to Erdogan. It was a message of enough for the Turkish people. And even if he will win the elections, I think that he had already lost. He had already lost big. He wanted to be this transformative revolutionary leader of Turkey after Atatürk, and he lost his moral legitimacy. I think he built in a decade. He built a relatively important democracy, and he destroyed everything he did in the last 2 years. So I think that we are assisting at the end of the era of Erdogan. Yes, he will probably win the elections, but it is now impossible for him to manage to control the country while he declared the half of the
impossible to control the country? He still has a lot of support.
The half of the country, even not half of the country, 40% of the country, but the rest of the people who doesn't vote for him, they are now the enemies of the state. They are the villains. They are, he uses an extremely dangerous, polarizing discourse just because of these elections. He declared a lot of people as enemy, not only the Turkish people who doesn't vote for him, and the Americans, Jews, even the Queen of England. It's becoming. It has become a little bit ridiculous, actually. It's related to the the elections, but it is. I think it will be very difficult to manage the situation after the elections.
All right. We have one comment on Facebook. Otto saying Erdogan did for Turkey what no French president has done. He led his country from the ground to the top. So someone there is in support of Erdogan. Sinan ULGEN, seen from Istanbul over the past 24 hours. I guess I'll put the same question I put at the top, which is, what do you think is the most important thing that happened during those 269 days when that 15-year-old boy was in a coma? What's happened that has changed?
I think one fundamental thing that has changed when we look at the evolution of domestic politics in Turkey is the following. Erdogan is Turkey's prime minister. He remains the most popular politician of the land. He has won 3 consecutive elections. That's all true. But increasingly, he has become also a very polarizing figure in Turkey. And we saw already the first sign of the reaction to Turkish society to Erdogan's style of governance, his paternalistic approach to politics, his divisive approach to politics over the last summer during the Gezi protests. Now, after the 17th of December, where there were many leaks regarding allegations of serious cases of corruption, something else has also changed in Turkish politics. And that is the people, the 50% of the people that did not vote for Erdogan, until the 17th of December, accepted Erdogan's legitimacy to rule the country. At the end of the day, that's what democracy is about. If somebody that you don't happen to like is elected, nonetheless, he's been elected through free and fair elections. Therefore, he has the right to rule. But since the 17th of December, the reaction of the government with regard to these allegations of corruption have actually led people to believe that there is now an erosion of the state of the rule of law in Turkey. And that is of major concern. And therefore, that really brings to the fore the legitimacy of the government. We hear this from the opposition parties, that are challenging now the legitimacy of the Erdogan government to rule the country. And let me just rephrase this. It's not because Erdogan is not elected through fair and fair elections. He is elected through free and fair elections. But the reaction of the government with regard to the rule of law, which for all practical purposes has been suspended, gives serious concern to many Turks about the future of this country.
All right, and a lot in that statement, a comment we should read to you here from Alon. All fair-minded Turks feel shackled by Erdogan's draconian policies to unchain themselves. They must democratically remove him from office. Still faith in the ballot box? We're always having this discussion about how democratic is Turkey, and you just heard it there in the remarks by Sinan ULGEN.
Mm-hmm.
How much faith do you have in democracy in Turkey right now?
I have great faith in democracy and in Turkish people, actually. The thing is, we have to remind our memories, actually. The way that AKP government came to power, AKP party came to power, was through promising large projects resembling different groups in Turkey, actually. It was about European Union, it was about freeing the politics from the military's control, it was about economic development, it was about freedom of religion, freedom of thought, freedom of expression. And what we see actually during these 12 years of government, it's this switch from this democratic tendencies to a kind of monopolistic and statist version of governance. I think this is quite deceiving. And I think that it's not only those millions of people who are demonstrating in the streets.
But critics say it was even less democratic before.
Yeah, but I think this kind of complot theories, I don't believe in them. I believe that people may change. I believe that politics change people. I believe that there is a kind of a fatigue out of this power. So I think that we should judge politicians as other people's by their actions, actually, not out of their intentions or whatever. But at the beginning it was good. We are not worse than it was than we were in
a decade
ago. So I think there's this great deception out of this governance style of Erdogan, starting with his personalization of the power and his monopolistic tendencies of the ruling.
All right, so this trend and a lot of reactions about the Erdogan style. One person commenting, no condolences so far have been offered by Erdogan to Berkin Elvan. That's the 15-year-old boy's family. No word of compassion, no sorrow. The Prime Minister, yes, he came out swinging today after that funeral, the mass protest, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, at a ceremony in the capital, Ankara.
These are charlatans. They have nothing to do with democracy. They don't believe in the ballot box, and they can see what's waiting for them in the future. And as they can see their future, they're saying, let's cause chaos, and maybe we'll get a result. But they cannot get anything. My brothers in Ankara and Turkey will give the necessary answer on March the 30th.
March 30th, of course, the date of those local elections. Now, again, that's in stark contrast with the country's president, who hails from the same AK party.
I express my condolences to the family of the deceased and share their pain. I underline that everyone must be very careful not to let any new incident occur and allow any new pain to happen.
Galip, DALAY, does Prime Minister Erdogan need a new communications advisor?
Well, can I Can I make like some other comments before I answer this question? Because I think something needs to be adjusted.
Sure.
I mean, first, Emre DEMIR said he lost legitimacy in the eyes of the people. So that means people disapproves Erdogan. I mean, we hear this line of argument, especially from Gülenist papers such as Zaman, today's Zaman, quite often after this power struggle between Gülen movement and AK Party government. But like, you know, which people? I mean, the opinion polls still shows like 45%, 46% of the support. So does he also count this as part of the people? So if not, like, you know, who is the right people in order, like, who fits into the right conception of people when we talk about the people of Turkey? And the other things was that, you know, what only injustice comes out of the this government. I cannot accept this because this is an insult to Turkey's people, not just government. So that means like Turkey's people condone injustice. I mean, you know, definitely every single laws is heartbreaking and is sad. And I feel deeply sad for what has happened yesterday. But let's not forget, like, you know, the country that we are living in. In 1990s, the Kurds were being killed on the street by hundreds, not by 1 or 10 or 10. I mean, we are living in a country that has, you know, that has had a civil war in a sense, like, you know, which resulted in over 40,000 of people's death. So, I mean,
but is it a smart move?
Like,
Is it a smart move on the part of the prime minister when he calls those demonstrating charlatans?
Well, definitely not. Like, definitely not. I totally disagree, and I do agree that, you know, some language adjustment is badly needed. But like, you know, when we do make analysis as a political analysis, we cannot only focus on discourse. We also have to like focus on the deeds. If we don't focus on the deeds, we cannot understand like why Turkish people are supporting the government, because it is also the same people that had like favorable opinion, like around 70 to 80% of the European Union accession process. So how can you expect a population which has like, you know, favorable opinion in accession to the European Union by margin of 70 and 80% at the same time, like, you know, supporting supposedly injustice, supposedly like a government who lost its legitimacy in the eyes of the people? So there is a very big problem here when we analyze the situation.
All right, and we'll definitely, when we come back from the break, look at how it's all playing out on the international scene for Turkey. Before we go to the break, another comment from one of the viewers. Erdogan used to visit poor families in ghettos, care about his nation's poor, not anymore. He lost his mercy and morals. A lot of viewers divided over this issue. Stay with us. More to come here on the France 24 debate.